What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Okay, so we know Donald Trump, campaign promise. He said he was going to gut the federal government, right? He was going to cut employees, de-size it, bring it down. Let's make it smaller. Let's make it better. Let's make it more efficient. Blah, 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 blah. Well, you can't just go around firing federal employees. So what does Donald Trump do? He comes up with this great idea. Hey, let's do this buyout program. We're going to offer them like 8 months of severance pay so they can find it. They have plenty of time to find another job. And, you get it. I'm sure you've heard about this. Well, I love stories like this, by the way. Check this out. This is great. Union lawsuit seeks to block deferred resignation program. Oh, yeah. So now they're making up all kinds of garbage, all kinds of nonsense as to why this is a bad thing. Right? This just on a basic logical aspect of all this makes a lot of sense. This is a pretty good deal for federal employees because, for one, you're getting paid for 8 months so you can go and find another job. You don't have to go to work. Where else are you going to find a deal like that? Right? We've got to downsize the federal government. Right? These people, they have civil servant protections. You can't just fire these people. So this is a great idea as how to get rid of these people. Now they got the union lawsuits. Now they're going to come in. They're trying to stop it. But it's kind of nuanced, to be honest with you. And that's why I'm covering I love nuance to stories like this, because this is going to be great. There's at least 20,000 that have already agreed to do this. 20,000 federal employees. But let's get into this thing and see exactly what the hell they are suing for, because yeah, it doesn't make much sense if you ask me. It's tenuous at best. Let's get into it, though. 3 federal unions are asking a federal court to rule that the Trump administration's deferred resignation program is illegal as currently structured, and to order the Office of Personnel Management to give federal workers at least 2 more months to decide whether to opt in to the unconventional workforce reduction program. In a lawsuit filed Tuesday, the American Federation of Government Employees, the American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees, and the National Association of Government Employees claim the offer sent to most federal workers via last month's fork in the road mass email, which I would have loved to have read that, by the way. As a matter of fact, after I'm done recording here, I might go look that up, because that just sounds interesting as hell. We've come to a fork in the road. You have to go. And there ain't nothing you can do about it to stop it. If he has to take to shutting down departments, hey, it is what it is, right? But anyway, the fork in the road mass email violates the Administrative Procedure Act and other federal laws. As currently designed, the program gives employees until February 6th to decide whether or not to resign. In issuing the directive across the government barely a week after the new administration was sworn in, OPM did not conduct any analysis of which agencies were likely to experience high levels of resignations, the optimal number of resignations, or where staffing was already woefully insufficient such that soliciting resignations would be incontrovertibly harmful to government operations, attorneys for the labor unions wrote. So now they're worried about if the government's going to function okay? Are you kidding me? Right? Come on, get out of here with this nonsense. They didn't do a study. Are you serious? We don't need to do a study. We already know the federal government has way too many employees. Right? They're not going to get rid of a bunch of people so the federal government can't operate, for crying out loud. That's ridiculous. Alleged violations of federal law. And that alleged lack of analysis makes the deferred resignation program arbitrary and capricious under the APA, they argued. In addition, the lawsuit claims the approach would violate the Anti-Deficiency Act, which bars agency from obligating funds that Congress hasn't yet appropriated. Oh, so now it's a formality. They're suing on a formality, on a technicality, if you will. Right? We know the government's going to be funded. Like they're saying, in other words, what they're saying is the salaries, the paychecks for these government employees technically haven't been appropriated yet by Congress. So they can't guarantee payment until September, until that appropriations package goes through. That's what they're saying. And it's like, are you kidding me here? We know the government appropriations are going to be approved. I mean, like as if they're not going to be approved. It's okay, sure, but good luck in court with that. Because hopefully by the time this even makes it to court, those appropriations, this will be null and void right here. Wow. Because the continuing resolution that's currently funding the government expires on March 14th, the government can't legally commit to the portion of the program, the fork directive, as the lawsuit calls it, that promises to pay those who resign until September 30th. The Anti-Deficiency Act forbids OPM from guaranteeing payment without an appropriation, particularly where, as here, OPM does not know the contours of the future appropriations or funding levels. This promise is improper, the plaintiffs wrote. Once again, that's just a technicality. That's going to be funded, by the way. Like, are you serious with this one? But, hey, that's what they brought. That's what they're saying. So, sure. If Congress decides to not fund certain offices after March 14th, for example, employees in those offices who accepted the fork directive would have no appropriation to satisfy their promised pay. Technically, they're right. But it's one of those things where you're like, are you freaking kidding me? I guess they're not. Since January 28th, when OPM first sent the government-wide email blast, the administration has been seeking to reassure federal employees that the deferred resignation program is legal. In emails sent by acting agency leaders, workers were told the program is valid, lawful, and will be honored by their agencies. And OPM has accused federal unions, who have been warning employees that taking the offer would be unwise, of misleading their members. Program thoroughly vetted, OPM says. This is a rare, generous opportunity, one that was thoroughly vetted and intentionally designed to support employees through restructuring. McLaurin Pinover, an OPM spokeswoman, said in an emailed statement, instead of spreading misinformation and using workers as political pawns, they should be making sure federal employees have the facts and freedom to make the best decision for themselves and their families. OPM declined a Tuesday request for an interview about the deferred resignation program, but in answers to emailed questions, said it had also distributed to federal agencies a template contract intended to provide employees with binding assurance that those who accept the offer will indeed be paid through September 30th. Yeah, like, come on, are you kidding me? They're going to fund the government. They always do. Like, this is based upon the fact that the government isn't funded fully through September 30th. That's just ridiculous. Like, the only way this would be valid in court, in other words, is if these agencies don't get appropriated. Like, once again, let's look to the past for this. Has that ever happened? I see the argument here, and I'm struggling. To be honest with you, I'm struggling to make this argument, but it's kind of like, come on, are you freaking kidding me? It's gonna be funded. Are you trying to say it's not going to be funded? Because that's kind of ridiculous if you ask me. But according to the unions, it's far from clear that agencies can even make such a promise, given how unprecedented the deferred resignation program is and how little has been explained about the legal framework the administration plans to use to conduct it. They claim a series of FAQs, or frequently asked questions, OPM issued in the days after the initial email only added to the confusion, particularly in light of the extremely compressed timeline to participate in the fork directive. OPM's continual changing of the contours of that program and the rights and obligations of employees under it reflects the opposite of reasoned decision-making, union attorneys wrote. I don't think it does. You give these people a month to decide if they want to quit or not, if they want to take the deal. That's plenty of time, if you ask me. That's a lot of time. Hey, you want to give them a little bit more? Hey, let's extend this to March 1st. There you go. Problem solved. Bye-bye, lawsuit. Like, come on. Like, these are all just ridiculous reasons to sue over this. I understand what the unions are trying to do here. But you got to understand, we've got a spending problem in Washington. We've got a federal government that is bloated. This is a very unique way, I'll say that, to get rid of federal employees and get them back into the private sector. I think it's a good idea. It's better than just cut funding for those departments and just these people will have to be laid off because there's no funding. Like, that could happen as well. That would have to be done by Congress, of course, but it still could happen. Don't you think a severance package of 8 months full pay would be better than just being laid off, for crying out loud? Like, come on. This is going to happen one way or another. These people need to buckle up. They need to just go ahead and shut this whole lawsuit down. Stop wasting money. Stop wasting time. Because the government is going to be cut. I'm sorry. It's an unmovable object. Or it's an unstoppable force. We'll put it that way. And your lawsuit is definitely not an unmovable object. This unstoppable force, this will happen. The government will be slashed. It is already currently going on. Oh, these people, though. OPM's need to broadly and flatly assert that the exploding offer in the Fork in the Road Directive was lawful and valid only demonstrates that agencies' awareness of the tremendous extent of uncertainty surrounding the directive's validity and an effort to rush federal employees to make a decision in a matter of days despite that uncertainty. Now, I've made that argument before. I happen to agree with that, right? Like, it's the old adage of, if somebody comes out unprompted, it tells you a story and says, I'm not lying. They're probably lying, right? But in this instance, I don't know. I don't know if it is lawful because we have so much code on the books and there's so much protections around these federal employees. There could be a mistake here. They could have overlooked something and it might not actually be lawful to do this. Now, does it make it evil or bad that the Trump administration is doing this? No. As a matter of fact, it's a good idea, I think. I totally agree with it. If I was a federal employee and I was a Democrat, a leftist, and didn't like Trump, I would definitely take this deal, right? Like, come on. You don't want to work for the guy. But I understand their argument on this. You don't want to cede ground to the right, do you? Because now you're giving up that space and letting them take over. Yes. Exactly. We need to get these partisan actors out of the government. That's part of the problem. But the other part of the problem is the main excuse is we do have too many federal employees. But once again, the government needs to be downsized. We have a very bad spending problem. And these people don't seem to get that. And they're spending money to stop us from cutting some spending. How do you like them apples, y'all? Outside employment. No, this is a good one, y'all. This is a good one. Check this out. As one example of the confusion, the lawsuit points out the OPM's FAQ page about the program tells employees that once their federal work obligations are finished, they'll be free to take another job while still collecting their federal paycheck. We encourage you to find a job in the private sector as soon as you would like to do so, reads one of the answers added to the FAQ page several days after the initial email was sent. The way to greater American prosperity is encouraging people to move from lower productivity jobs in the public sector to higher productivity jobs in the private sector. Sounds reasonable, and it is. But it's unclear how that claim would intersect with numerous and nuanced federal rules about employees taking outside jobs while employed by the government, the unions argued. Also, now they're talking about the intersectionality of having two jobs. Oh, are you freaking kidding me on this one? Like, come on. Can you come up with something better than that? Like, I imagine there's many dozens, possibly hundreds of federal employees that have two jobs. Once again, though, that's the whole reason. Do these people not understand what a severance package is? Like, are you kidding me? They're paying them because we're getting rid of you. We're taking a reduction in workforce here. So you can spend that time looking for a job and you don't have to worry about paying your bills. That's the whole point of this. Once their federal work obligations are complete, they will be free to go look for more employment. Like, is this really their argument that they're saying, essentially, that, oh, their federal, their obligations to the federal, that it might conflict with going to find a new job or something like that? Like, that's what I'm getting from this. Like, that's really their excuse? That some of the rules of the federal government, in other words, that stop people from actually getting work in the private sector, because they do have some rules like that, you know, for certain agencies. You can't go get a job elsewhere. You can only work for the federal government. They're trying to invoke that. Okay, this is a severance package. You're no longer going to be working for the federal government. Once your federal obligations are complete to your job, you are free to go look. If you sign a document that says that voids any other kind of agreement you may have had with the federal government to not find employment elsewhere, right? It just nullifies, like an NDA, anything like that, or any of these contracts where you can't go get any employment in the same industry. In other words, there's a lot of these, right? Like, especially in the corporate press. If you're a journalist or TV presenter or something like that, your contract says, you know, you can't go get employment in the same field even after that contract is over for X amount of years, right? They have contracts like this all over the damn place. All right, there's many fields that have similar contracts, but they're telling you, you're signing a contract essentially allowing you to do so. So that pretty much voids that entire argument. But hey, they're going to bring that argument anyway. You might as well. Just waste everybody's time. Federal ethics regulations provide that federal employees who seek outside employment must comply with numerous conditions, including any agency-specific requirements to prior approval of outside employment or activities. And the regulations further provide that agencies may impose a prior approval requirement before individuals employed at the agency can accept outside employment, according to the lawsuit. Some agencies have codified their requirement for prior approval by regulation, and these policies could hardly be expected to change uniformly in the accelerated timeline created by the Fork Directive. I'm just loving this Fork Directive, by the way. This Fork Directive is just getting better and better and better. Not just the name of it, right? But the directive itself. Because, once again, this is kind of like your employer saying, yes, if you want to go find another job, you're fired, by the way. Go find another job. And the employee saying, no, but we signed a contract that says I can't go look for work. No, I'm giving you permission. That contract is null and void. No, they sure can't. There's regulations around this. Okay. The lawsuit filed in the U.S. District Court for the District of Columbia asks a judge to rule that the deferred resignation program is invalid and order OPM to come up with a reasoned basis for any replacement program. The plaintiffs also want OPM to give federal employees at least 60 days to consider any revised resignation offer. You gotta love these people, man, and these ridiculous nonsense lawsuits. I just love this, right? They're trying to somehow weasel their way out of this for some reason to make it unlawful. Trying to say, oh, Trump bad. I don't get it. I mean, I do get it, but I don't get it at the same time. Like, come on. These people, they can't seem to see that, you know, the government needs to be smaller. The government has become way too bloated. I understand a lot of Democrats, a lot of leftists, they want big government. They want government to do everything. They don't want to work. They want the government to provide everything for them, which is nuts. Like, imagine living your life that way. The government gives you a paycheck every week or every month or wherever it may be, right? Like, I don't know if I could do that. I could not take handouts. Like, I ain't gonna lie, we had WIC when I had when my kid was small, and I honestly didn't like the fact that my old lady used the WIC vouchers to go get milk and eggs and cheese and all that stuff. I couldn't stand that. Like, come on, stop using it. But she was like, no, we're gonna use it. And I'm like, I just don't like the idea of a handout, right? Like, I don't go ask my boss for loans if I'm broke. I will just go without. I don't like relying on anybody for anything at any time, for any reason, anywhere. At all. That's just me, though. And I just can't see how people would want to rely on big government to do everything for them. That to me, it's a moral quandary for me, right? Like, I just can't figure that one out. Why people would want to be subsidized by the government. Well, you just want to be lazy or something? Is that it? You want to not work or just be free to do whatever the hell you want to do? That's ridiculous. Make your way, right? Like, life owes you nothing. Your government owes you nothing at all. That's how I see it, at least. But I think I've went on for long enough on this one, y'all. I want y'all to let me know what y'all think about all this down in the comments section. You know, is this lawsuit going to go forward? I imagine it will. But do you think it's going to make it to the Supreme Court? That's what I really want to know. And how the Supreme Court is going to judge this. See what they think. But y'all let me know what y'all think. That's all I got on this one. I want to thank everybody for watching. And y'all try to have a good day. Stay legitical. Peace.